I'd like to welcome Andras Csaki, and this is the very first podcast for the Melbourne Guitar Festival that we're having. Welcome.
Welcome everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here with you guys.
Excellent. Now, Andras, you're performing for us on November 23, and this is your first Australian tour. What can we expect with your concert program that you're bringing?
So, yes, it's my first visit to Australia, and I try to find a program which represents all the qualities I think I have. So I'm starting with this early music. I'm starting with Bach, a Bach piece, just one prelude from the partita, E major. Actually, this was a piece I really feared of. It was a kind of a daunting piece for me. It was really technically, musically very difficult when I first started to play like 15 years ago. And then in 2008, I won Tokyo competition. And after that competition, I had a concert tour in Japan. So I decided to start each and every concert of this tour with this prelude.
That's very brave.
Because, if you have angst for something, then you should cope with this angst, and that was the way how I cope with or fight with this kind of fear. And it went really well. I tried different practicing methods for especially the start of this piece, and it worked out really very well because the public really liked it. I prefer to start my concerts with a shorter piece, which is kind of, kind of bombastic. Maybe it's a little bit too, so maybe it's exaggerating, but something which creates an effect, a nice effect. So this prelude is perfect for this. It's a wonderful music. When I was a child, I listened to Bach orchestral music especially, and also the clavier music or the keyboard music very often. So this is very close to my heart. Therefore, I start with this prelude. After, I'm going to play some fantasies by John Dowland, especially two fantasies. One is the Farewell, which has this beautiful polyphony in it, and I also love polyphony because when I was a child, I listened to a lot of fugues by Bach, also madrigals and this polyphonic music on CDs. And when I discovered Dowland for myself, I was really very happy and very glad to find that on the guitar we can play such a quality music. So I'm going to continue with these two fantasies. This first one, the Farewell, is a more complex and a little bit more melodical fantasy, and the second fantasy is a cheerful one. It's really easy, a crowd pleaser, we can call it, a crowd pleaser maybe. Then I'm going to play an interesting piece, a sonata by Franz Wertmüller, who, if you Google this guy, Franz Wertmüller, you will find that this is actually a fake name for Tilman Hopstock.
Right.
Who was the original composer of this composition.
Yes.
But in the music, in the preface of the music, you can find information about this composer, and it says that he was a contemporary of Haydn. But these are just, it's just fake.
So it's Tilman.
Biography.
Yeah. So for those of our audience that don't know, Tilman is a very fine contemporary guitarist. But do you want to talk a little bit about who Tilman is?
Pardon?
Would you like to explain a little bit who Tilman Hopstock is? He's a very fine...
Of course. Yeah. He's a professor and a wonderful guitar player. He's teaching in Darmstadt, and he has that kind of compositions he would like to... he composed in classical style, and this sonata is composed in a classical style. It's actually interesting because... he says that it's composed in Haydn style, but it's also, you can find a little Schubert in it, especially in the second movement, and it's a very interesting music and kind of music which is, I think, a little bit missing from the classical guitar repertoire, because my other favorite, apart from Bach and the madrigals, is actually Mozart and Haydn music. Yeah, so we also play some transcriptions, sometimes not in Australia at the moment, but in some other concerts I play some duos by Mozart, which we transcribe to two guitars, and I really like that kind of transcriptions. And when I find this piece a couple of years ago, this sonata by Hopstock or Bert Muller, I was really happy to have such a composition, which is a quality composition, not easy on the guitar, sounds like a piano transcription, actually. And I think it's a nice color in our repertoire, and I don't need to play Sor or Giuliani, you know. I love Sor and Giuliani as well, just it's always interesting to have some new flavors.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a piece that I'm very unfamiliar with. So I'm sure many of our audience perhaps haven't heard that piece before either. So it'll be great to hear the new repertoire for us. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'm going to play some other compositions by composers from the 20th century, by Casanova Tedesco and also by Miklós Rózsa. These are two composers who composed a lot of movie cinema music, so they got even the Oscar Prize, you know, for their music, but they also composed for the concert stages. And of course, Tedesco needs no introduction because you know, I think he's very well known by all the guitarists and guitar music lovers. But Miklós Rózsa probably is another guy who is not very often played at the moment. He was born in Hungary, actually, at the beginning of the 20th century, and he was 20 years younger, than Kodály and Bartók, you know, the two huge Hungarian composers from the first part of the 20th century. And he actually a little bit composed in their style. So it's his style, Miklós Rózsa style, is very close to Bartók's or Kodály style. And however, this sonata, which I'm going to play by him, was written at the 1980s. It was close to the end of his life when he composed this solo guitar sonata. And it was a really nice experience for me to find the music of this composition. And another very interesting detail about this piece, that Miklós Rózsa was actually a faculty, was a professor at the University of Southern California, and at that university I also pursued some postgraduate studies with Scott Tennant and William Kanengeiser. And Bill Kanengeiser actually did the New York debut of this sonata.
Oh, wow.
So I had the opportunity to play this sonata to him, and we worked a little bit on this piece together with him. And it was a very nice experience because he was my teacher, my professor at that time, and he told me about Miklós Rózsa. He was, who was, you know, coming from the same country where I am from.
Excellent.
So that was a very nice experience, and we did it at the university where both Miklós Rózsa and William Kanengeiser were professors, and I was student there.
Excellent.
So these are the connections to that piece.
So Bill gave.
This is a lovely sonata.
So Bill gave the debut performance over there, and you'll be giving probably the Australian debut, because probably no one else has played that year, I think.
That would be a big honor for me if it's true. That would be nice, actually. So it's a sonata in 3 movements, and it's really a little bit sounds like the sonatas from the first half of the century. So it's not super contemporary. It's more like a sonata by Tedesco, similar to the sonata by Tedesco or sonata by Jose, that kind of sonata. So the style is like that. However, it was written more than 50 years later than these sonatas.
Great.
So in the second half of the concert, it's more dedicated to that kind of music. And as far as I remember, I'm going to play one more piece, which is probably not very familiar to everyone, is by a Polish composer, Jan Nepomuceno. And he was a very interesting guy. I think his nickname was the Chopin of the guitar.
Sure, yeah.
And this variation is probably the most famous composition by him. It's a variation, Grandest Variations, Opus 6. And it's based on a duet from a Mozart opera, the Don Giovanni. Yeah. The title of this duet is Lacidarem della mano. It's a beautiful and very famous little duet. And it's basically a very virtuosic set of variations.
Excellent.
And so that's probably gonna be another new color in the repertoire. So I don't think that it's very often played, this piece as well.
I certainly haven't heard that before either. So I'm really looking forward to all this new music for me in particular. And I'm sure many other people, it'll be very new to them as well. I should have asked you this to start off with, but being the first podcast, maybe I need a little bit of practice for this. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Andras Csaki? Where are you from? And what do? You travel the world performing guitar. You're a professor of guitar as well over in Budapest. So maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, it's always the most difficult. So I was a student of the Franz Liszt Academy, the famous Franz Liszt Academy of Budapest, a guitar student. I graduated there in 2007 and then became a professor there as well. I also did a doctorate there and did some postgraduate studies at University of Southern California with Scott Tennant and Bill Kannengeiser. Yeah. And also Pepe Romero was visiting professor there, and that was a very, very memorable experience for me to have many private lessons with Pepe on Rodrigo concertos. Once I even performed Rodrigo Fantasia para un gentil hombre in front of him with orchestra.
Excellent.
And I have a private lesson with him on the following day. That was one of the most memorable experiences for me at that time. So I used to compete. I won different competitions. I would say that I won some competitions and some others I was out from the first round. You know how competition works. So I don't want to say that I just won competitions, because you have all the ups and downs. Sometimes the jury like you, sometimes they don't like you at all. So it wasn't different in my case as well, but I won some bigger ones like Alessandria, Tokyo. I was second in GFA. Especially I was second behind Vladimir Gorbac, who was at that year the first time prize winner when I was second. So many of our audience will be familiar with Vladimir. He played at our first Melbourne Guitar Festival several years ago, and recently in the last few years moved to Sydney and is head of guitar in Sydney, so it's wonderful. Yeah. Therefore I mentioned it, because I know that he's very well known in Australia. And he was also he's also an alumni of the alumni of University of Southern California, because we just almost each other. I studied there for a year, and then the following year he started his doctorate there.
Excellent.
So we just swapped our places there. Okay, so I'm currently teaching in 2 universities. I have my full-time job at Franz Liszt Academy. I have many nice young students. I really enjoy teaching, and when I started to teach more than maybe it was 15 years ago now already. It made a big difference in my life. You know, suddenly I had to think about a lot of important issues concerning the guitar, because some things you can do, you know, on your own without any problems, but when you start to teach, then you will have some students who will have problems with things you never even imagined to have any problems, and you need to, you know, think through these issues, and you need to be able to help them. And it's such a nice experience when you can help. You can see that you can help someone with progressing in a piece or in a technical problem, or you can see that kind of development that you can help them with. So I started to teach 15 years ago, and after, you know, having this job at the Franz Liszt Academy, there was another application in a different university in southern part of Hungary, and my colleagues, you know, actually convinced me to apply for it, and I applied for that job as well, and I got that job as well. So now I have 2 jobs. Sometimes it feels too much, but it's a wonderful pleasure as well, and honor to have so many very you know, students who are interested in this classical guitar music.
Excellent. Well, yeah, it sounds like you're having a great impact teaching, which is wonderful, because I believe you're doing some teaching for us as well in Melbourne. So we'll have some very lucky students who will be performing for you, and I'm sure they're all very excited for that.
I'm looking forward to that, absolutely.
Well, let's move on a little bit. We did do a call out to some of our subscribers and followers to submit some questions that they might want to ask you, and we did get quite a few that emailed in. So we'll run through them, and the first one I'd like to talk about is your current choice of guitar, and this is a question from John. He would like to know what your thoughts are on the current controversy between lattice versus double tops versus traditional built guitars, and how does that affect your approach to playing?
Okay, so at the moment, let's start here. So at the moment I'm playing a guitar by a Czech maker, Petr Matušek. It's a double top guitar. So before I used Kono guitars for more than 10 years, and I really love the sound of the traditional guitars. I also have lattice guitar by George Ziatas, an Australian maker. At the moment, I'm using the double top guitar because, you know, my problem is that I really love the power of the lattice guitars, and I really love the color of the traditional guitars. But it's so difficult to find both qualities in one instrument. So my current instrument was actually it was a very funny story, because I met this guy Petr Matušek in 2010 in a guitar festival, and I tried his instruments and I really loved them. So we agreed to make a contract, and he promised me to make a guitar for me in a year. And I gave him my contacts and everything, and for 3 years there was nothing, you know. And in 2013 he just called me that, okay, I have a guitar ready for you, just check it. If you like, you can get it. If you don't like, then I can sell it to someone else.
Yeah.
No worries. So I was, a bit skeptic about the guitar,
Yeah.
but I went to the place, and I changed the strings on my current guitar, and I went there, and the guitar was really convincing.
Yeah.
So even I brought my wife with me there to be, someone who is sober and not so enthusiastic like me, because I can get excited if I see a good guitar and it sounds good, then I can be excited. But my wife was excited as well.
Yeah.
So however, we went there not to buy the instrument.
Yeah.
At the end, I bought it, and I'm happy with that guitar.
Excellent.
From that time on. And I'm also it's important, I think, that I'm a D'Addario artist, so I'm using D'Addario strings, these new Dynacore strings, and also the mixed set, which has normal nylon strings for the first treble string, and the second, third are carbons. This works perfectly on my guitar, because again, with the carbon strings and the nylon strings, I have this problem that I love the color of the nylon strings, and I love the power of the carbon strings.
Yes. Yeah.
But I need to combine these two, and I think that's also a good solution to use that kind of mixed sets, which D'Addario and other makers are doing as well.
Excellent. So you think perhaps the double top is a good combination between the lattice and the traditional?
For me at the moment, the double top is the one which works. But it depends on the I can imagine that there are many great lattice guitars as well, and for some repertoire, maybe lattice is a better choice. So, for example, if you play contemporary chamber music, could be a good choice to have a lattice guitar. And also, if you, for example, doing a studio recording, I'm not sure that I would use my concert guitar, my double top guitar for that one. So, for certain repertoire, I would probably use the traditional guitar, which I still have.
So for the your recordings that you've already released, they were done on your Kono?
Yeah, some of them on the Kono, and I have a new recording, or not very new, but a couple of years ago I recorded the 4 lute suites by Johann Sebastian Bach, and that was made on my Matuszek actually. But the first 3 CDs by me, it's on the Kono. Different Konos, but on the Kono guitar.
Yeah, excellent. Well, maybe that's a good excuse for us guitarists to have lots of guitars. Rather than just the one. I think any excuse will take. I got another question. This is a different John. He was asking if you can outline a daily practice routine. Do you have anything in particular that you do? Yeah,
of course. It also depends. I'm playing in many different settings. So I often play chamber music. I often play solo music. So, for example, I'm just telling you the last 1.5 months. I played in a contemporary chamber music concert now. I played in a contemporary opera. I played solo concerts with different repertoire. And also some other smaller. Oh yeah, and I played a couple concertos with orchestra, like Tedesco and Giuliani, and this is just this last 1.5 months.
Wow!
So this was extremely busy.
How do you do it?
I have. I'm not bragging now. I'm just telling you that for different problems or programs, I have a different daily routine. So if I'm preparing, for example, a concerto, then I will focusing on different exercises. I'm at the moment, I'm teaching a lot, so I need to be very efficient timing wise, and so I don't really have the amount of time to play scales, to play exercises. So I always try to find spots in my pieces which are demanding, technically demanding for warm up. So for example, if I need to play Aranjuez, then I would check the two difficult scales with slurs at the end from the first movement, and probably the scale before the second cadence from the second movement for warm up. Like I would do them really slowly and precisely with metronome. Sorry.
Yeah, we just lost video a little bit there. And
hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello. Yeah, I hear you as well.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, now is it okay?
Yes, we're back.
I don't know what happened with the internet connection. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry for this. Oh, okay. So if I play the Aranjuez, then I would actually sort out these spots, these difficult spots, and I would do them with different fingerings, right hand and left hand. So I would use these kind of little segments for warming up. Then it's also, you always try to have some new pieces. So I always try to create a variety of pieces when I'm practicing. One of the pieces are all could be an old piece, which you performing. The other pieces are, almost new or brand new, and I would search for good fingerings and some musical ideas in them. So I always, it's like eating. I try to have always different problems ahead of myself, and I try to entertain myself with these different procedures what I'm using for these pieces. I always try to play some Bach because Bach is, as I mentioned before, is one of my favorite composers, and it's also, I think it's for your musical hygiene, it's good to have Bach. So I always try to practice Bach as well. And as I told you, I'm teaching a lot, and I'm also a father, so I have some limitations. I can't practice after 10 o'clock, for example. So it's not like in the old times, when I could practice forever during the night.
Yeah. And you have a...
So I
was going to say, you have I believe, a 14-month-old daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have.
Yeah. What's her name?
It's her name is Esther.
Esther. Great.
Esther.
And
so now this.
Sorry about that.
Yep. Tell me.
I was going to ask. Yeah. How do you find balancing the family life commitments with the practice? I believe you were going to perhaps talk about.
Yeah, that's sometimes challenging, but I try to sketch it down on paper what I need to practice until when. And I try to work like an orchestra. An orchestra always have a rehearsal plan.
Yeah.
What are they going to rehearse, and what are they going to practice in the upcoming week? And I try to sketch down something similar to myself. That I, for example, if in 2 weeks I need to play the Rodrigo Fantasia, then I need to practice this and this difficult parts of it, and I know that how many hours do I need for that, and especially I need to concentrate on memorization. If I need to deal with many different programs, which I'm playing by heart, then I also using a couple tricks on memory.
Could you elaborate on what those tricks are?
Well, I think they are pretty well known, so they are probably not tricks anymore, but for example, I try to visualize, the guitar, and try to play it without the guitar, especially after 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. It's a very neighbor-friendly way of practicing. Also, there is a very good technique which works perfectly for me, to set your metronome to 60 and play the music without any rhythms. You know, it makes you think, because you need to think about the upcoming note, because you won't have rhythm, and it's super slow. You know, the 60.
So each note is a 60.
Is a beat, yeah, it's a 60 beat, yeah. So that's really challenging. If you can play through a piece like this, then you know that piece for sure. Yeah. And also, I always try to find track points. If there is, because we are humans, you know, we are prone to making mistakes. So if I have that kind of points where I can jump to, then it gives me safety. And if I have this kind of safety, then I wouldn't do the mistake, because I have nothing to fear from, you know. So it's that kind of. So basically, like these are the general ideas, but of course we can talk about this for forever, because this is a really interesting topic. Memorization for me, it's a really interesting topic.
Definitely. I'll bring up the next question. We had a couple of people ask about stage or performance anxiety. Have you ever suffered from that, and do you have any advice that you can give to guitarists that do suffer from that?
Well, of course, I think all of us have more or less encountered with that kind of feeling, you know, stage fright. I learned a lot about this at California University, you know, because it was a hot topic there. We had many books on that. You know, I think that for me the key is in the practice, in the way of how I practice. If I practice thoroughly, and I'm analyzing my pieces, and I do this visualization, and you know, do all these necessary factors, then I feel strong and I feel confident on stage. If I didn't have the time, you know, or I try to avoid this, but it could happen to everyone, then it could be a little bit challenging to deal with the fright, this stage fright. But I don't think that I'm overly, you know, anxious before concert. So I'm not really. So I'm normally okay with it. So I actually more. Which I don't really like is waiting before the concert, you know. If you are there, if you are warmed up, for example, I played many times in Italy or Spain, and they always like late, but not a little bit late. They can be late by 25. And then I always have that kind of feeling that, okay, that would be nice to start the concert now, because I'm ready. I would like to go on stage.
We'll make sure that we start right on time for you then, for your concert with us. Okay, right, 7 o'clock, right on the dot. I mean, for you. So perhaps to summarize, your way to manage performance anxiety is to manage your preparation. So the more well prepared you are, then the more comfortable you are on stage.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And I'm just mindful of time as well. I know we could go on for hours and hours with this, but I'll just pick a couple more questions that got sent through. This one's from Tom Chalco. He was asking, he sent a few. And how do you go about choosing repertoire for a specific performance? What is your main criterion for choosing a program, such as why did you choose the pieces for this program in particular that you did?
You know, I'm kind of into the conservative repertoire choices. So I really like playing classical style and Baroque style music on the guitar, and I think that's my strong suit, and therefore I try to pick that kind of repertoire. I also play in contemporary stuff, but I think my stronger side is performing the Baroque and classical style music. And as I told you before, I used to listen and still listening to a lot of recordings, classical orchestra recordings, and I have favorite pianists. For example, Andras Csaki, who is a Hungarian born, very famous pianist, was still one of my favorites, and I have all of his CDs. Of course, now in the world of Spotify, it's much easier, but I have it also in CD format. But I constantly listening to that kind of music, and I would like to, or Glenn Gould, for example, another favorite of mine, and I try to find a way on guitar which heads towards to this way, what they are doing on the piano. Of course, in smaller scales, and these guys are geniuses, so I'm aware of that. But I admire them and try to at least not follow the path, but start to walk on that path what they are already at the end, and you know.
Excellent.
So I'm basically playing that kind of repertoire more often. But of course, sometimes I have special requests to play pieces. If I go to Russia, to play Russian pieces sometimes, or if I go to some other bigger countries. I was actually thinking about playing some Australian pieces as well.
Yeah.
Maybe we will see if there is enough applause. Then we will see if I can come up with something.
That would be wonderful, I'm sure. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
We
will see.
Great. All right. We might hold you to that, actually. So, yeah, be careful. Another question from Tom. He asks if you can give us some tips about air travel with the guitar. Did you have any airline adventures or misadventures?
Oh, yeah, all the times, a lot of quarrels with the ground staff. Actually, 2 or 3 years ago, I gave up this because I felt that I having gray hair, with white hair because of this. I'm losing hair and everything, and losing ages from my from my life, arguing with some airlines to keep a guitar as a carry-on. So now what I did is I have a good case. It's a concerto carbon case by my maker, but you can do it also with other. There are many good carbon cases. And what I did, I actually went to a company who could made me a little soft cover, which I can put on the guitar case. And this soft cover is actually a really thick one. It's like almost it's 4 centimeters thick.
Yeah, wow.
So it's a really it's a really good one. So actually, it almost bounces back. The guitar bounces back if you just
drop it.
It falls down or drop it, then it bounces back. So now what I do, I go there and I put it on the belt, and I telling them that okay, I check it in.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, they are now more prone to allow me to keep it as a carry-on because they are, since I'm not fighting anymore, they are actually a little bit surprised that, oh, are you sure? Is it not fragile? So since that, I have almost no problem with it. Almost all the time I can take it. And it's much bigger, now, the top, the case look much bigger, but it looks soft from the outside.
Yeah, so perhaps makes it, being a soft-looking case, they're more anxious for you. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's soft-looking case is the best way. Yeah. And I also asked some other traveling guitarists, and this was one of the tricks what they told me.
Excellent.
Actually.
Great. And one last question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
What is your favorite activity apart from guitar? Now, before you answer that, I did share a photo of a doppelganger who I think that you look like. If anyone else saw that on our Facebook page, I thought you look a little bit like Roger Federer. We had a side-by-side image we shared. Do you like tennis at all? Or is that just a coincidence?
Well, Actually, I know tennis, but I'm not an aficionado.
Yeah.
So I'm not. I don't watch tennis on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I watch some bigger matches, but not too often. So I'm more into the cars, actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really like cars.
Yeah.
I really love driving and traveling with the family.
Yeah.
I also love swimming and I'm jogging. You know.
Oh wow.
That's my
and with the
leisure activity.
And with the cars, is it race cars or is it more display show cars or?
Well, you know, I just of course I have a very simple car.
Yeah.
But we have that kind of car exhibitions sometimes. Yeah. And I often go there and check the latest models, you know, and I also try to, I have some favorite car shows, probably, there was also an Australian edition of Top Gear, you know, before.
Yeah. Oh, right.
You know this car show?
No, I don't actually. I'm not a car person, so I'm not too familiar.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So there was also an Australian edition. I don't know if it's still running.
Yeah.
But I really love the British version of it, which is now called Grand Tour, and it's kind of more than a car show. Yeah. It's not basically not basically about the cars, but it's a lot. It's like a really show, you know, like. With a lot of interesting and funny stories, and so it's very entertaining at the same time.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time, and we might leave the questions at that. And I'm sure if anyone has any further questions, they can perhaps come up and say g'day to you after the concert when you're performing. Yeah, we will have complimentary beer, courtesy of Dayton Beer. Wine by Delaquente Wine, and also wonderful cheese platters. So it's a 60-minute concert program without interval, and then straight after that everyone will mingle and have a chat, have some food and drink, and we will also have some guitars on display there. And we have one maker in particular, Carey Petticini, will be displaying some of his guitars, so people can have a pluck and play and all that. So it'll be a really nice evening. And we'll put a link in the comments below for tickets for that concert. It is a small venue, and we've already sold 25% of the tickets, so I'm sure we'll be sold out by the day of your concert. So if anyone wants to come along, make sure you pre-book. There are no tickets at the door. And we might just wave farewell to Facebook, and then I'll stop the stream. So thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you for everyone.
Right.
Thank you. See ya.